A baby is staring at you, and something about it feels too direct, too focused, too still. Not the way a person looks at something interesting. The way a person looks when they are trying to figure something out that matters. You smile. They keep staring. You look away. You look back. Still there. And most people file this away as one of those things babies do, charming, a little unnerving, ultimately unexplained. But there is a branch of developmental psychology that has spent 60 years asking a single question about that stare. Not what the baby is looking at, not what can the baby see, but something far more unsettling and far more profound. What is the baby trying to find? And what they discovered doesn't just change how you understand infants. It changes how you understand the moment any human being first becomes a self. Start with what the stare is not. It is not passive. It is not entertainment. It is not the baby defaulting to your face because the room has nothing better to offer. By 3 months old, an infant has enough visual range and enough cognitive processing to attend to almost anything in their environment. They choose your face anyway, every time, with that specific quality of attention that feels less like looking and more like reading. And when researchers started asking why the face, why always the face, the answer that emerged from the data pointed somewhere nobody in the field expected. Somewhere much older and much stranger than vision science. In 1967, a British pediatrician and psychoanalyst named Donald Winnicott published a paper that most of his contemporaries didn't fully understand for another decade. It was called The Mirror Role of Mother and Family in Child Development, and in it, he proposed something that sounds simple until you feel the full weight of what it means. He said that when a baby looks at the mother's face, what they see is themselves, not literally. Not a reflection, but something more fundamental than a reflection. They see what they are producing in another person. They see the response their existence generates. And that response, Winnicott argued, is the first material a human being uses to construct a sense of who they are. The face you make when you look at your baby is the first mirror they ever look into. And what they find there is not you. It is the first version of themselves. This was not a poetic metaphor. Winnicott meant it as a clinical observation. Infants do not arrive in the world with a self already formed and waiting to be expressed. They arrive with the raw potential for a self. And what shapes that potential into something coherent, something stable, something that can eventually say, I exist, and know what that means, is the accumulation of being seen, genuinely seen, not glanced at, not managed. Seen. Colwyn Trevarthen, a developmental psychologist who spent decades filming mother-infant interactions in the first weeks of life, documented something he called proto-conversation. Before language, before the gesture, before any conventional signal, most people would recognize as communication. Infants and caregivers were already taking turns. The baby vocalizes. The mother responds. The mother pauses. The baby responds. The baby goes still. The mother waits. And so it continues, back and forth, a conversation with no words whose entire content is the mutual recognition that the other person is there and is responding. The stare is not the beginning of this conversation. It is a conversation. It is the infant saying, in the only language available to them, I am here. Are you receiving me? And here is where Daniel Stern enters, because Stern is the researcher who found what the baby is actually watching for during that exchange. Stern, a psychiatrist and infant researcher at Cornell, spent years analyzing what he called moments of meeting between infants and caregivers. And what he discovered was that the baby is not simply watching for a response. They are watching for a specific kind of response. They are watching to see if you match them. Not in content, not in the specific expression, but in vitality, in intensity, in the emotional shape of what they are generating. Stern called this affect attunement. If the baby produces a burst of excited sound, and you respond with something that matches that energy, the same level of aliveness, the same tempo, even in a completely different form, a gesture, a tone, a movement, The baby receives it as recognition, as being met. But if your response is flat, or delayed, or mismatched in energy, even if the words are warm, the baby notices. At a level that precedes conscious thought, they register, what I produced did not land. What I am was not received. Every time a baby stares at your face, what they are actually asking is the most important question a human being ever asks, is who I am, something you can see. And everything they will eventually believe about whether they are real, whether they matter, whether their inner life is legible to other people, is being answered right now in the expression on your face. Now I need to tell you about research that is difficult to sit with, because it shows what happens when the state finds nothing. Researchers studying infants of mothers experiencing significant postpartum depression documented a pattern that changed the field's understanding of how the self forms. These mothers were not absent. They were present, physically, consistently, often trying very hard. But depression flattens affect. It dulls the face. It makes genuine attunement nearly impossible, not because of any failure of love, but because the neurobiology of depression suppresses the very responsiveness the infant is searching for. What the researchers found in those babies was not distress in the way most people picture it. It was something quieter and harder to name. Reduced initiation, less reaching, less vocalizing. Faces that, by 4 months old, had already begun to mirror the flatness they were receiving, as though the self, finding no reflection, had begun to dim its own signal. Not because something was wrong with the baby, because the face they were staring into had not been able to say back, I see you, you are here, you are real. If this is reaching something in you, subscribe to this channel. Every video here is built on the science most people never find, explained with the weight it actually deserves. Subscribing takes 3 seconds and helps this work reach every parent who needs it. Because here is what Philippe Rochat at Emory University spent years documenting about what all that staring is ultimately building toward. Rochat mapped the stages of self-awareness in human infants with a precision no researcher had achieved before him. And what he found was that the capacity for self-recognition, the moment a baby understands that the face in the mirror is their own face, does not emerge from nowhere. It emerges from the thousands of hours of being seen by someone else first. The baby who is genuinely met in the stare, whose vitality is matched, whose signals are received and reflected, develops a sense of self that is coherent enough to eventually recognize itself. They learn they existed by watching it register in you. The stare is not the baby looking for entertainment. It is not the baby defaulting to the most visually complex object in the room. It is the earliest and most urgent act of self-construction a human being ever performs. They are staring at you because you are the only place in the world where they can find the answer to the question they do not yet have language for, but are asking, with every second of that unblinking, unrelenting gaze. The question is not, who are you? The question is, who am I? And the only place the answer lives, in the first months of human life, is in the expression on your face when you look back. So, the next time a baby locks eyes with you and holds there, longer than feels comfortable, longer than you know what to do with, understand what is actually happening. They are not judging you. They are not confused. They are engaged in the oldest and most necessary act in human development. They are trying to become a person, and they need your face to do it. Look back. I mean it. Let them find something there. Drop a comment and tell me, was there a moment you looked at a baby and felt like they were seeing something you hadn't shown them? Because they were. And if you want to understand what happens inside a baby's body when you leave the room, how they hold you when you're not there, that is the next video. And it will change how you think about every goodbye.